All right, today on the Gearhead Gardener, we're going to show you about 4 or 5 different ways of rooting ficus tree. Backstory here, my father-in-law, my kid's grandpa is moving out of his house of 47 years, and there's a beautiful ficus tree in the backyard, and I wanted to cut down a couple branches just to play with, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to grow some in case the kids ever wanted Papa's ficus tree. So if there's something you're interested in, let's get started. Okay, here it is, part 1 of my growing ficus trees from cuttings here on the Gearhead Gardener. So let me give you the rundown. My father-in-law is 92 years old. We're moving him out of his condo he's been at forever. There's been a ficus tree in the backyard, and I've chopped it up many times. Now, back in my day, I've grown and killed a couple of ficus, and I've never really attempted to grow them. But as he's leaving, I'm looking at this thing we just cut down really, did a nice pruning on it last year, and this year it just looks phenomenal. So I grabbed a couple of cuttings, and I'm going to go ahead and try my luck on rooting them. And I'm thinking I might even go back. Unfortunately, he's selling the place, so I don't have time to do a air layering. I wish I would have done that before, but I got some nice little branches, and these are all pretty new growth. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these up a little bit. And from what I understand, you can just put these in water. So I'm going to cut off a couple of these side branches and play with these and do just a couple of things. So anyways, this is part 1. Hope you like it. So all I've been basically doing is just cutting these little side branches here off of them. That gives you a nice, healthy sized tree. And those are going to go in these mason jars. And I'm just going to keep an eye on them. And I could always discover other ways. So with all these little side branches, I'm going to take these and propagate these differently in little cups. Two of the cuttings were like these little heel cuttings. So I've put them in rooting hormone, and I'm placing them in this little tiny bonsai pot because this one little tree is lonely in there. It's only going to be for a few weeks anyways, hopefully. I think this little hornbeam seedling that's come up. So I'm going to put these in here and see if we can get these to root really quick. My substrate is just 50% perlite, 50% vermiculite. And I'm going to keep it nice and moist and see how fast it roots in here. What I'm going to do with all these really small cuttings, you can see what I've taken a little bit of 1/2 mil wire and just kind of wired them all together, put all the tips together. And for a substrate on this, I'm going to do the same thing. There's a jar that has 50%. Oops. Okay, in my jar, I've got 50% perlite, 50% vermiculite, and I've taken this little soda bottle, cut the bottom off of a small one. I put my holes in it. And then all I'm going to really need to do is put water in here, and it'll go ahead and suck up as much as it needs. Okay. I could add a little bit to the top if I wanted to. And then I've taken all these little tiny cuttings and I've wired them all together. And I'm dipping it into my rooting hormone, and it's going to go right into the very center of my container. And I'm just going to push down my substrate to make sure I have good contact. Again, there's no organics in here. It's just pumice. Okay, now I've taken the bottom of a bigger soda container, cut a little notch out of it, and that'll fit all the leaves in here. Just like this. and I push this down, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this or not, but with the V I cut in there, that gives it a little tiny bit of a vent. So as I can push this down, close off the vent, lift it back up, and I'll just make sure I keep some water in there. I'm not gonna tell you what was in this container or who ate it. So this is another control that I have, like a dozen of these things, lots of leaves on, and we're gonna see how long these take to root. I got a spot underneath the bench here where it's gonna get some sun, and it's gonna keep the humidity and moisture in here. So 3 ways we're gonna try this. 2 pieces, and maybe we'll try it 4 ways, 5 ways. 2 pieces are in the same substrate out in the open that are heel cuttings. All these little branch cuttings are gonna be under the workbench. And then we have all of these. I'm not exactly sure what we're gonna do, but I know these could root just like that in water, so maybe we're gonna leave those in there for a little while and see what happens. So it's gonna be about, from what I hear, it's gonna be 15 to 20 days. So we're gonna come back here in 2 weeks. Today is November 7th, 2022. And we will come back in about 2 weeks and see if we have any growth going on. Let's take this little guy out so we can see again. Here we go. And I've also taken a couple of branches outside. Okay, there's a nice stocky cutting right here. And what I'm gonna do with this one, you can see I've dipped that in my rooting hormone. I'm letting it sit just for a little while. That is just gonna go into regular garden soil. And I'm gonna put this over where I have some other rooting experiments going on. And we're gonna see if we can just get this to root just like this big branch. Not even that big of a branch. It's still this year's growth, it's current. I pushed it down to get a couple of the nodes in the ground, so it's gonna stay, you know, it's got a couple of different places to root from. Packing the soil so there's good connection. And where this is gonna sit, it's gonna get a little tiny bit of sun, and it's gonna stay nice and moist the whole afternoon. And that's right outside the shop. Let me show you where this is gonna sit. I'm just gonna set it right here with all these other ones, all this other stuff going on. And here I've got a lot of other rooting projects going on, so I'm just gonna take this and stick this in the ground, in this pot here, where I have a maple tree growing. I'm gonna insert it pretty far down, and I'm just gonna leave it like that and see how that grows, if that'll do anything. Okay, for the last one, you're looking at, here's my hand washing station. Yeah, that's lava soap right there. Anything I need to clean, from a coffee pot to my grubby hands, gets washed right here, and all the water goes underneath my air conditioning unit right outside the shop. You can see I already put one there. I'm gonna put a second one in there because everything grows so good under here. Even though it's got all that toxic chemicals, you can see there's an acorn there. I've rooted apricots and peaches and plums and acorns, and you can see in there that's a little hornbeam that just came up. I transplanted one out earlier, and that is a piece of jasmine. So this always grows really cool. So the gardeners come tomorrow, even in the rain, so I'm gonna put a couple things out here so they don't get in there with their weed eater until I get that fenced off. We're just gonna see how this one does here. That's the worst possible scenario, and we're gonna see if we can get it to root. Okay, so here we go. It is Papa's Ficus cutting, 11/7/2022. We've got a few different ways: open air, in perlite, vermiculite mix. We have it vermiculite mix with a ton of cuttings in a controlled environment, and we have just roots in water. I mean, branches in water. We're going to try that as well. And ficus is just in garden soil, and you saw the ones that we had that I put out in the yard. So we're going to follow us along. We're going to take a look back in 2 weeks when we think we can start having some roots. Like I said, it's 11/7/2022. Thanks for watching the Gearhead Gardener here on philatv. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Come along with me on this adventure as I fix up these old Volkswagens and play with my trees. Thanks for watching. Ciao.